Let's spend a few moments looking at Visual Studio, and if you want to check your version, you go to Help and then About. So I'm using Studio Community version 2017 on this computer. That should be adequate for our purposes. And what I'd like to do today is the You Do It exercise from chapter 3 in the book, and this is on page 121. And I have a Windows Form app already open in Visual Studio, but I'll open up another one. So go to File, New, and Project. Now, these are your possibilities here, and for this class, sometimes we'll be doing a console app, and this runs in a little, like a command prompt box. And sometimes we're going to be doing a Windows Form app. So, Chapter 3 actually introduces you to the Windows Form app, so let's do one of those. So, on the instructions on page 121, number 1 says open Microsoft Visual Studio, and I've done that. Number 2 says select File and New and Project, and that's where I am right now. And then it says select Visual C, which I have right here, and Windows Form app, and that's where we are right here. And it says instead of using the default project name, use Hello Visual World and select this location to store the project. So I'm going to come down here for the name, and I'm going to change that to Hello, call it Hello Visual World. Now, there's one other thing I want to do here. I'm going to put my name, and I usually put in periods or underscores here. I think that'll work just fine. Now, the next thing you need to be sure of here is where you're actually putting this. Now, mine is defaulted to source and repos under my profile. I'm not sure why it did that. It's something I've done previously. So let's go browse, and I can't remember where it goes by default, as a matter of fact. What I would recommend is you click on browse and go to your documents, and I'm going to put mine in alphabetical order. You'll notice here I have created a folder under my documents, and you do it just clicking right there, called Visual Studio 2017. If I open that, there's a number of things underneath here, and this, trying to recall, it's been a while since I installed this. This might have been part of the actual installation of Visual Studio 2017. Would not surprise me at all. I'm running this on several different computers, and every one of them is a little different, and I get confused. But anyway, here's projects. There's a number of projects already under here. So my point is, just make sure you save your projects somewhere that you can easily find them. So let's, I'm going to put mine right there under projects. So there's the path. And I'm going to create a new solution, and let's click on OK. Now, let me go show you something else. I'm going to open up a new Windows Explorer window. And I'm going to navigate to the folder I was just And let's see, I call this Hello Visual World. So this is the actual folder where the files were created. Notice there's a file here with the extension SLN. By the way, if you can't see this SLN on your computer, you need to do this. Let's see here. In the first place, again, sometimes I have trouble remembering how to do this because I set my computers up and then promptly forget how I do things. If you can't see this, this is the toolbar. Let's see, if we go to Organize, Layout, well, it's a menu bar. Make sure you turn on the menu bar. This should get you this. And now I want to do, let's see, View Tools. Yeah, under Tools, there's something here called Folder Options. Click on Folder Options. And now go to View. Now what you need to do here is, probably on your computer, this particular checkbox here doesn't have a check in it. That displays the full path in the title bar. It may or may not have that. I like mine on. Now, the hidden files and folders, I don't really care what you do there. This one here is probably going to be checked on your computer. Uncheck that. This hides the extensions for known file types. If this is checked, you will not see the SLN. You'll just see this name. And you won't know the difference between a file with the extension SLN or CS, or you just won't know what type of file it is. Although sometimes you can look out here and see. I just prefer to show the file extensions. I also remove this checkbox. It will give you a warning. It'll fuss at you. You can do whatever you want on this one, but this is the important one. And then click on Apply and OK. So this will let you see the extension. So what I wanted to show you here is, if I click this right now, it's going to load this project in Visual Studio 2017, because that's the solution file. If I go into this folder, notice there's a Form 1. This is where your codes are going to go. Form 1 Designer. This has information about where what your form actually looks like, and program is associated with Form 1. So these three together, it takes all these three files if you're doing a Windows form app. And by the way, if you go into the bin file here and then in debug, once you get something in your project, there's actually an executable here that you can run without opening up your Visual Studio. So that's kind of interesting. There's going to be times, if we were doing, for example, just a Windows console app, all I would need to see from you would be the CS file. Like this, or this. If you're doing a Windows form app, I really need all of this. And in those situations, what I'll have you do is go out here to this level right here, and right click this, and one of these options here is compress. This one is specifically is compress an email. You don't want to do compress an email because our email system will flag and basically eat all zipped files or compressed files. What you want to do here is send to compressed zipped folder, and then you can submit this through Blackboard when I'll make an assignment in Blackboard. So don't try to email zipped files. They will never make it through. So I just want to spend a few moments showing you something about the file structure itself. So here we are, and let's go back to our instructions. And let's see, I think we're on number 3 on page 121. It says the Hello Visual World Development Environment opens as shown in figure 316. The text in the title bar of the blank form contains the default text. So this is the title bar, and this is the default text. So on page 122, it says if you click the form, its properties window appears in the lower right portion of the screen. So as soon as you do a Windows app, you get this. If just in case, if you click on it, and this was already being shown, this is the properties window, and everything in here, notice right there is form 1 because we haven't renamed it. Everything in here applies to this little window, and this is these are all called properties, and there's a few of these we will set. Of course, theoretically you can reset. You can change any of these. So still going back to the instructions, if we scroll down here, there's a text property, and notice it's set to form 1. If you go back up here, let's see, padding size right here. The default size is 300 pixels by 300 pixels. So now let's go to number 4, and it says in the properties window, change the name of the form to Hello Form, and it further says in parentheses, the name property is under design if you choose to have the list categorized. If you choose to display it alphabetically, then name is near the top. Now what they're telling you here is there's different ways you can organize this. This is categorized. I'm currently in alphabetical. You can do this listing. Let's see what this does for us. And then finally you've got this, which shows you the events. So it's whichever view you want here. Let's go back to, I think this is what I started out with, and take the events off. So if you manipulate these buttons here, this is going to give you categories. Notice there's an accessibility category, there's an appearance category, down here is design. You can look at it like that, or you can do this, which puts everything in alphabetical order. I kind of like the categorized, but it's up to you, whichever way you decide you want to go with this. So let's look back on our instructions here. Number 4 says change the name of the form to Hello Form. So we want to find name, and there's a little note there, the name property is under design. If you're looking at it like I am. So here I'm going to type in Hello Form. Now notice this is all one word. So you press enter, and notice this changed here. So we renamed this particular form. Continue with the instructions. It says then change the text of the form to Hello Visual World and press enter. So let's see. scroll down, and you will learn where everything's at after a while. So right now I'm looking for text that looks like it's up here. Or maybe not. Let's look at this. Sometimes it's easier to find it under alphabetical. So there's the text there. So you can switch back and forth. Here we need to put in hello visual world. Now when I press enter, watch what happens up here in this title bar. So this is how you would change the the title of your window. Now you did notice I clicked on this and I switched over here. Well, here's what's going on here. This is the Form 1 CS file, and this is something that Visual Studio did for you. This is the code that it takes to create this form. This is the design mode. This allows you to place tools, line everything up the way you want it. This is the code that actually makes it, part of the code that makes it happen. It's not all of it. When we created this form, we did get some of this code. Well, this code here, for example, was created. And this is the one part of the code here that simply creates the form. You'll see as we add things to our little window here, more and more things are going to show up over here. So far we've renamed the form and we've changed the text. So that's number 4. Number 5, it says, examine the toolbox on the left side of the screen. Now, here's our toolbox, and I could show all the Windows forms, or I could, per the instructions here, just click on, or expand here, common controls. Now, these are common controls that you could put into this little window that do various things for you. The instructions say, click and hold the button. So here's the button. And as you move your mouse off the toolbox into the form, the mouse pointer changes. Notice mouse changing. So this is what I'm doing here is I'm dragging a button into my little form here and put it someplace. How about right there? And then release. And notice I have a button. Now you can resize the button. You can move the button with the mouse. You can also move it over here. Now notice that when I click on the button, the properties of the button are now visible over here in the properties window. If I click on the form, notice it changes back to the form. So sometimes if you're looking for something over here and you can't find it, it's because you haven't clicked on the right component to see the properties that you're trying to find. So let's see, back to the instructions. So we've resized it. The instructions say click the button to display the properties for button 1. We have it's over here. Change its name to display output button. So if you look through here, here you go. I'm going right here and display. I'm going to capitalize that B. And I'm going to take the 1 off. You could, if you think you're going to have more than one button of that type, you could certainly leave the number. And I would caution you to certainly rename these. You'll notice that by default this was just button 1. You need to put a name here that's means something to you in the context of your program, because it's going to be hard otherwise when your applications get somewhat more complicated. So for all variables and things like this, try to use a very descriptive name. It's a little more typing, but I think it'll pay off in the long run for you. And let's see now what else we need to do. We need to change its text properties to click here. So if you scroll down, text, I'm going to change this to click here. And the instructions say if you click anywhere in the form, this updates. Notice my properties went back to hello, my form itself, but this did update. So now we have a button. We've named the button and we've changed the text on the button. By the way, well, I'll show you that in a moment. Number 6 says scroll through the other display output button properties. And again, remember you have to select that before you can get the properties for this particular button. Notice it says the first value listed for location indicates the horizontal position, and the second value indicates the vertical position. So let's see, we want to go to location. So where I dropped it at is 91,59. If I move this around, as soon as I release it, notice how this changed. So you can try to position this with the mouse, and you'll notice that once we get more than one component here from one control, there are little lines that pop up to help you align things. You can also go over here and actually put in a number, and that's what the instructions say. Change this to 80, 50 and press enter, and notice it moved it back up here. So now it looks like we're ready for the next page, 223 and number 7, excuse me, 123. It says save your form by clicking file in the menu bar and then clicking save all. So you could do this, file and save all. You can also go right here to the two little discs, or the icon with the two little discs on it, and click on save all. Number 8, although your form doesn't do much yet, you can execute the program anyway. Click debug on the menu bar and then click start without debugging. The form appears. You can drag, minimize, restore it, and you can click its button, although nothing will happen because we haven't added any code yet to be executed when we click on the button. So we could go to debug and start without debugging, or usually I just click on start. Now it takes a little while for this for Visual Studio to do the compiling of our little simple application here and create an executable file, and there it is. Notice I can move it around, I can minimize it, I can maximize it, I can click on it, but again nothing's happening because we haven't added any code yet to be triggered by this event of clicking on this particular button. So let's just click the X, takes us back into Visual Studio. So that's number 8 on 123. Number 9, it does say here that you can close the project at any time and come back to it later. And this is just practice exiting and then starting back up. I don't really see any reason to do that. So now I'm on page 124, and I'm assuming that I've already restarted Visual Studio. Number 2 says when the form appears, drag a label from the toolbox to the form. So we want to go over here and find ourselves a label. Label, drag it over here. And notice this is what I was telling you about. See how it aligned that? So you get some little lines there to help you line up your controls. So drag the label into the toolbox, or from the toolbox to the form. Change its name to Hello Label and its text property to Hello Visual World. So make sure that this is selected. Notice over here we have the Label 1 properties displayed here, and we're supposed to change its name to Hello Label. So I'll do that. And its text property to Hello Visual World. So come down to text. And I'm going to jazz it up a little bit. You notice there's a little arrow here. If you click on this, this will show you things, other names that you've used in your project. So that's what's going on there. Notice it's already changed up here. Now this is a label. It's going to be displayed at a proper time here, and this is what we're going to do next. Well, it says still in number 2, it says change the properties location, or excuse me, the label's location property to 8140. So let's see, location. The 80 we already had, because remember it lined us up this way. And you can do this if you want to, or you can leave it where it's at. I'm going to change it to 140. Notice how it moved down. So let's see, that's all of number 2. Number 3 says scroll through the properties list for Hello Label and change its visible property from true to false by clicking to the right of true, and then clicking the down arrow and selecting false. So we're going to go to the visible property. Notice it's right down here. And if I click the little arrow, I can go false. Now what this does is the label is not going to be visible until we specifically turn it on when we run the program. So that's what we've done there. Number 4 says double click the button on the form. So double click, and this is what happened a while ago. I double clicked on that button, and now I'm into the code. So you'll notice here, and this is per the instructions, it says a new window that contains program code is displayed, revealing the newly created display output button click method. So here it is. This is the display output button click method. So whatever's between these curly braces here is going to be executed when the user clicks on our display output button. So here we actually need to put in some C# code. And the instructions say, between the curly braces, type the following statement that causes the label to appear when the user clicks the button on the form. So here we're going to put in hello and then label. Oops. Now notice IntelliSense here, as soon as I start typing, it's trying to match something up for me. And there's hello label. So now you can double click on that and it'll fill this out. There's also some other ways of getting it to work. So play around with that and you'll figure out which one you like. Notice as soon as I hit the period here, I'm getting properties of hello label. So hello label, remember, was the button, or it's the label that we previously had hid, and this is like an object. These are all properties of hello label, and if you scroll down, actually if you just hit the V, it'll take you all the way down to the V's. Visible is what we want to change, and equals, and IntelliSense again, as soon as I type TR, it fills me out there, or shows me the options under T, and notice I got to put in a semicolon. So let's think about what we've done here. Go back to design. we put a button here, and what's going to happen when the user clicks the button, and I'll double click here, take you to the code, this method is executed. And what it's going to do is it's going to basically make our label visible. Recall, our label also had some text associated with it, so the text is going to appear. You'll see how that happens here in a moment. So, number 5 says change the name of the display output button click method to use conventional Pascal casing, uppercase, lowercase is what they're meaning there, by right-clicking the method name and selecting rename, and then changing the highlighted name start in uppercase D. So this is not a big deal. They just want you to show you that this is possible, and watch what else happens. I'm going to I clicked on rename, and I'm going to change this to a D, capital D, and you get a little box up here that says you can read those. The big thing is rename will update 2 references to this button in 2 different files. So we want to do that, so click apply. So we've done number 5. Number 6, save the file. So do a save off. And I'm going to start it. Wait for it to compile. Now, notice our label is not visible. When I click here, the method associated with the click on this button turned the label, or made it visible, basically turned it on. So that's what that single line that says hello label.visible equals true, that's what this did. So let's go back in and look at some other things we can do. Now number 6 here on page 124 says, if you want to play around with this, you can change some of the other properties, such as font, back color, etc. So let's see how we would do this. Go back to design, click on the label. So we're looking at the label properties. Let's see, font. So by default it's sans serif, 8.25 points, which is pretty small really. So if you have a favorite font, and let's see, probably more luck going like this. Always getting too big a hurry. I've never used that font before, but let's try it. Okay. Now in this case you might want to realign things, and notice my location changed here. And let's see, we can do 4 color, and if I click on this I get some options. Now notice here I can do custom. Now this is the 4 color, isn't it? If I want red I can do that. And the other thing that the instructions recommended is we could do back color. And again, let's see what would look good. How about that? Okay, so let's save that. Start it. Compiles a lot quicker on this particular computer than it does my laptop at home. So click here, and there's your label. Different font, different 4 color, different back color, all done in the properties of the label. And by the way, this is all done without you having to add any code. This is all done for you. The only thing we've added so far as real code is just that one statement right there. So let's continue here with the instructions. Still on page 124. It says add a second button to the form. In the next steps, you add a second button to the form of the Hello Visual World project. So it says under number 1, switch to design view. So there we are. Drag a second button onto the form. So there you go. And we'll drop it right there. I'm not sure where we want to put it. Make its location property 8095. So make sure that this button, notice it becomes button 1 because this was button 1. We renamed it, so now it uses this as button 1. So it says, the instructions say make its location property 8195. So if we follow the instructions, yeah, that's pretty good. And I actually made the other one a little bit bigger, didn't I? See, notice how that lined up there for me? That'd be under the size option. See the size there? Size property. Change the new button's name property to change output button. So this is pretty much standard procedure. You always want to change the name to something that means something to you. So this is going to be the change. See that? Change output button. And it's text. Change that to click me last. And it says if you need to change the drag the button's handles to adjust the size so you can actually see this, the text. So we're good. Number 2 says double click the change output button to expose the change output button click method. Now remember a while ago, as soon as we click this, we got this was added for us automatically. Okay, now watch what happens this time. Go back to design. If I double click on this, notice this is what we had before. This has been added. So you drag the control onto the form and change its properties over here, as long as it's highlighted. When you double click on it, you get a default method here that's going to trigger when you click on this control. In this case, it's a button. So now we can add some code here between these curly braces. And this is a number 3 at the bottom of page 124. It says, type this, hello, label. And notice the IntelliSense is, helping us out there. So double click, dot. I'm just going to type the T, and it takes me down to all the T options here. Text equals. And notice as soon as I hit the quotation marks, I got 2 of them. Okay. So I'm going to do a string here. So goodbye. And I'm going to add a little something. Goodbye and thanks. Now, you still got to go over one position and put in your semicolon. That's one of those little bugaboos that will probably cause you some trouble. And by the way, while I'm thinking about that, if you're trying to run this and you're getting an error that something like a semicolon is expected on line 147, well, it could be that the actual semicolon is missing way on up in here somewhere. It's just it took the compiler that many lines to figure out that you missed something way up here. So sometimes you'll get a line number here, and that's not really where the problem is. The problem is back a line or 2, or sometimes more than that previously. So that's just a good thing to keep in mind. So now on page 125, it says save the project. Number 4, save the project and execute the program. So save all, start. Here's our little window. So we click here. There we are. And then click me last. Notice it changed that label text to goodbye and thanks. Isn't that pretty cool? And really, so far, the only code we really added here is this line and that line. And we've got all this going on here. And this is pretty much how these Windows Forms applications are going to play out. The Visual Studio makes it easy to, or easier to do input-output, but you're still going to have to go in and put the appropriate code in the appropriate place. So let's see, we can, that was number 4. Now it says run this again, so I'm going to run it again. And this is number 5 on page 125. It says execute the program again. This time clicks the second button first. So if we click here, notice nothing happens. And the reason is no code has been executed that actually displayed the our output label. Although when we click this, this really happened, but it hasn't been turned on yet. So watch what happens when you click here. See, it went straight to goodbye, thanks. So when I clicked this the first time, this executed. But I couldn't see it. I had to click here, which this event actually runs this code and actually turns it on. Okay. Let's see here. I'm still on number 5. Execute the program again. Number 6 says return to the Form 1 CS Design tab. Well, let's see. Okay. Click the Change Output button, which would be that one, and change its enable property to false. Now when the program executes, the user will not be immediately able to click the second button. So I think there's probably something missing here in these instructions. I think we need to exit out of here. All right, now let's do number 6. Return to the Form 1 CS Design tab. Click the Change Output button. So here we are. This is Change Output button. Change its enabled property to false. So let's go over here and find enabled. Now it's true. Change that to false. So now when the program executes, the user will not immediately be able to click the second button. Number 7, double-click the Display Output button, which is this one. Notice Display Output button. And hopefully you're noticing here that this is why we put meaningful names on these controls, make it easier to follow what we're trying to do here. Add the following statement to the click method so that the Change Output button becomes enabled when the Display Output button is clicked. So what we're going to do, just double click here, takes us over to the code, takes us right to the code for that particular, the event associated with that control. And I'm going to put in this change. And notice that IntelliSense helps me out here. So Change Output button enabled equals true. Don't forget your semicolon. So save this. Now here's what we've done. We've set the enabled property of our change output button to false, this is going to turn it on at the proper time. So we didn't want it to be displayed yet. So click here and then click me last. Now, I mentioned to you earlier when we were looking at our files that there's going to be an executable here. So let me go back over here. So notice I'm under, this is where I saved my project, and this is the project that I'm working on currently. And I go into this folder and going into bin and debug. Notice there's an exe file. So I'm going to run that. So just double click on this. And I'm not sure why that's like that. I have to look around and see why that's, you can still see that. But it's, you'll notice it's not active. We can actually make it so you can't even see it at all. So click here, hello visual world, click be last, goodbye and thanks. So this is actually running as part of the exe file. So this one's still open, so I'll close it. This takes us back into Visual Studio. Number 9, dismiss the form and close Visual Studio. So we've run through the You Do It exercise starting on page 121. And I thought that was pretty informative. Now, the thing I want you to remember here is, if we're doing a Windows form, there's a design mode. You just basically pull these controls over here, and for any one of these controls, like this one, put a meaningful name on it. So this is a label, and I named it the Hello label. And then when you click on it, select it. Of course, you have to do that before you can rename it. There's a number of properties that you can change here. Without writing any code at all. This is something that Visual Studio does for you. For things like these buttons, when you double click on this, you're taken over into the basically a code view, and you're taken to the place where I clicked on this display output button, and it put me right here into a method that where I can put code that's going to run when the user clicks on that button. And in this case, the only thing we were doing was changing properties. But you know, if you wanted to add two numbers together, this is where you would put that code. If you wanted to test some sort of do some tests on the user input, this is where that code would go as well. So it's a pretty interesting system how this works. Now again, as I pointed out earlier, this is for a Windows app. As we go through the class, there's also a lot of times we'll just actually be doing console apps. And sometimes you might want to do a console app just to prove or to verify your logic for a particular, something that you're trying to accomplish in a program. And once you're confident that your logic is correct, then you would transfer that into a Windows form. So console apps have their applications, as do Windows forms. I think most of us prefer Windows forms because they're prettier, among other things. But don't discount the utility of also doing a console app. So I think I'll end this particular video right here.